If you tried to describe what God is like, it could be difficult or daunting. But when the people who wrote the Bible pondered the mystery of God, they consistently describe God's character in this way: compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, overflowing with loyal love and faithfulness. We're going to look at this fourth phrase, loyal love. It translates the Hebrew word chesed, which is hard to translate into any language because it combines the ideas of love, generosity, and enduring commitment all into one. Chesed describes an act of promise-keeping loyalty that is motivated by deep personal care. Like in the story of Ruth. Ruth is a foreigner married to an Israelite man, but tragically, her husband dies along with his brother and his father. All Ruth has left is her widowed mother-in-law, Naomi, who has nothing to give her. Naomi tells Ruth she should go back to her people, but instead, Ruth promises to stay by Naomi's side and take care of her. And as other people watch Ruth keep this promise over time, they call it an act of chesed. Notice that Ruth's chesed is not conditional or based on Naomi's worth. Rather, it's an expression of Ruth's character. She just is a generous and loving person who keeps her word. That's chesed. Now, Ruth's loyal love is truly inspiring, but the one who shows the most enduring chesed in the Bible is God. Like in the story about Jacob, who is a treacherous liar even to his own family. But despite that, God chooses him and repeats the promise he made to Jacob's grandfather, Abraham, that he would have a huge family through whom God would restore his blessing to the nations. And so 20 years later, when Jacob realizes how undeserving he is, he says to God, "I'm not worthy of all the chesed you've shown me." And he's right. But God's chesed was never about Jacob's worth in the first place. It's a display of God's generous loyalty to his promise. God's chesed continues into the story of Jacob's descendants, the Israelites. When they're enslaved by Pharaoh in Egypt, we're told that God remembered his promise to Abraham and Jacob, so God defeats Egypt and raises up Moses to liberate the people and lead them into the promised land. And in the story, this is called an act of chesed because it was about God keeping his word. Now, on their way to the promised land, the Israelites are scared of the nations around them, and they doubt that God can protect them. So the people threaten to kill Moses and appoint a new leader to take them back to Egypt. God is understandably hurt and angry, but Moses steps in and says, "Forgive the sin of these people because of your great chesed." Notice that Moses asks God to forgive not because the people deserve it, but because it's consistent with God's own character. And God agrees, and he recommits himself to a people that don't want to be committed to him. In the Bible, God is loyal and loving for no other reason than it's just who God is. Of course, he wants his people to respond with chesed in return, but even when they don't, God's chesed remains. The prophet Hosea compared Israel's chesed to a morning mist that's here one moment and gone the next. But God's chesed is enduring. Like in the celebration of Psalm 136 that opens by saying, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good," and then 26 times repeats, "His chesed is forever." And so, after centuries of Israel betraying their commitment to God, and after humanity's long history of violence and death, God still kept his promise in a dramatic and drastic way by becoming human and binding himself to us in the person of Jesus. And the people who followed Jesus of Nazareth said that in him they encountered the God of Israel, who is full of loyal love and faithfulness. Jesus is the ultimate loyal and loving human. And in his life, death, and resurrection, God opened up a new future for all of us and for all of creation. And God did this because it's just who God is: generous, loving, and eternally loyal to his promises. And when we experience the purity and power of God's loyal love shown through Jesus, it compels us to reimagine why and how we can show chesed back to God and to the people around us. This is what it means to say that God is overflowing with loyal love.
All right, so my name is Mike, and I have been at Westwood since 1990 when my family moved here. I was 7 years old. For those of you doing the math, that means I'm 43, and we've been at Westwood ever since. A little bit about myself is I've been in PG largely the whole time, with the exception of going to Briarcrest Bible College for 4 years and then to the University of Victoria, where I did my degree in education. And so as you see this whiteboard here, you'll probably think, oh, this is the work of a teacher, and it is. And I talked to another teacher earlier before the service, and they said that they were feeling a little bit jittery knowing that their school year is about to get started. And I'm inviting them into school, I guess, a little bit earlier. Another thing about me that I think is probably important to note is that if you're somebody that doesn't like to talk to people, this probably is going to feel a little uncomfortable, because I love community and I love being together. And I think one of the greatest things that we can do in this church body together is be together and to do life together and to learn together. And so I am going to be, all of you have pieces of paper. These are going to prompt some different discussions. And that is what we're looking at. If you don't have a piece of paper, feel free to connect with somebody beside you, or I think the ushers might have some extra. And if you put your hand up, they can come around and give you one. So, the word that we're looking at today comes from Exodus 34, verses 6 and 7, which we've been looking at for the summer series. And the word is chesed, with a guttural KH. Let's all try saying it together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Chesed. Okay, very good. Let's do it one more time. Kids, make sure if you are coloring, put your coloring sheet down, or playing with a fidget like my son, put it down, and try it again together. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Chesed. Okay, so this word, loosely translated, is abounding in love, but we're going to dive into that today and see that it is so deep and so rich and means so much in the context of God describing himself. My deep hope for today, and those of you that teach at Cedars might as well kind of I can see the little bit of twitching and the laughing from the Cedars teachers. This is something that Cedars weaves into all of their curricula, into everything that they're doing, is these deep hopes of who and what they hope people, their kids that they teach to wrestle with throughout the year. And I do love the imagery of this. And so my deep hopes for today are two. One is that we, as individuals, identify where we see God's chesed in our lives, or maybe where we want to see it. And the second is that we identify who we can share God's chesed with. Because God in Genesis 12, as he's speaking to Abraham, he says that I'm going to use you to bless the nations. And that is something that I think we as believers, as Christians, can really take to the city of Prince George and beyond. So just kind of, let me see here. I've got some notes here. Okay, this is a shout-out time. Okay, so get ready to shout things out. I'm not writing it down at this moment here. So the shout-out time is based on this question. Based on that quick video from the BibleProject, if someone maybe shows chesed, or great love or kindness to another person, what might that look like practically? What could it look like? Shout out. Hospitality, fulfilling a need, service, forgiveness. Persistent love. And there's probably a few other things that are maybe clicking through in our heads, and that's what we're going to look at today, is what is chesed? What does it look like? So the word chesed, this Hebrew word, it appears in the Old Testament 247 times, and it's translated many different ways. It's translated as loving kindness, mercy, favor, loyalty, abounding in love. And we might wonder, why is this one word, chesed, translated so many ways? And kind of simply is that the English language has so many precise words in it, and so many more words than the Hebrew language, that we have broken things down into many different ways. So chesed, as we go through the scriptures and as we see it in the scriptures, it's going to be translated in different ways. But what we want to do is really look at the essence of what is this chesed. So we are going to dive into the Bible, and everybody has some printouts there. The reason why I did a printout is that it's it's not paraphrased, it's just scaled back, because in some cases it's like 3 chapters of the Bible, and we're not going to have time to go through like 3 chapters. So it's pared down, really to try to emphasize where we see this word chesed. And what you'll see on the pieces of paper is you'll see capitalized, bolded words. Those are the English translation in the NIV, New International Version, of what chesed was translated to. Now, this is actually going to be a great one for kids, I'm hoping, because these are all stories. So as I said, kids, I saw some heads pop up from the coloring sheets. This is an opportunity for you to hear and read some of the stories alongside those sitting beside you. But what we're going to do in this activity here is we are going to group up, read the story. I tried to keep it like 200 words or less, so it should be, a minute and a half of reading. Discuss and answer the 3 questions, which I will put on the screen. And get ready to shout out your responses for question 3. And I've got question 3 written on the bottom of every page. Now, you'll notice it's a double-sided page. The first side we're going to look at is labeled like story 1A or 1B or 1C or 1D. And what these stories are stories of people showing chesed to other people. And so there's a story about David, a story about Rahab, a story about Ruth, and a story about the men of Jabesh Gilead. I was not going to write that out. I started to. It got too small, and so that is that. So we're going to group up, read the story, discuss the questions I'm going to put up, and get ready to shout out responses. This is like rapid-fire reading and learning. So I'm going to be setting a timer here for, for probably 5 minutes. And then we are going to start shouting out some answers when I bring us back. So let's go to the 3 questions, so we have them up there. These are the 3 questions. What does the person do that shows chesed? What difference does the chesed make for the person receiving it? And based on this story, what do you think chesed means? What is that underlying essence of what it is? Okay, feel free to awkwardly talk, and then the volume will rise, people will feel comfortable, and it'll be pretty good. Okay, we'll give about 45 more seconds. All right. Okay, so I'm going to try to interrupt your conversation, which is, I know, seems maybe a little counterintuitive to what I described earlier. And it's funny because as I've been in the classroom for many years, I've kind of described myself as a professional interrupter. I just love to create the discussion and then stop it. Now, I do apologize for people online. I actually had a slide to describe what I was wanting you to do online, which is the same thing, is to read through one of these stories, discuss in the chat or with someone around you. I know some people connect at home. I think my parents are connecting online right now. And post your responses to question 3 in the chat. So I do apologize. That's my bad. I even had the slide in front of me to show what I was supposed to do, and I jumped over it. I apologize. We are going to do this one more time with the next story, but that's it. That's it. So what I want to do, though, is I want to gather some of what you talked about. So thinking about just question 3, of what do you think chesed means? Just shout out some stuff. In the story of David and Mephibosheth, what is the essence of chesed? What does that mean in that story? Okay, so I apologize for my printing is going to really degrade here. So, okay, so hospitality, forgiveness, mercy, obedience to God, loyalty, faithfulness, intentional action. Sacrifice. I heard something about extravagant something. Just extravagance. Okay. Now, obviously, if you didn't have this particular story, you're wondering, what was this story about? Go read it. It's really awesome. Really cool story. So if you look for the story of David and Mephibosheth, you'll find out what is in that story. It's a really cool picture of chesed. Okay, Rahab. What does chesed mean in the story of Rahab? Does anybody have Rahab's story? Sacrificial love. Determination. Thank you, Joe. Faith. Sorry, what was that? Insight. Commitment. Okay. All right, again, go look at that story, Rahab and the spies. Really cool story of how she demonstrates chesed to these spies entering the land of Canaan, and how then she requests that they show her chesed. Okay, Ruth and Naomi. Loyalty. Sacrifice. Faithfulness. Kindness. Respect. Selflessness. Selflessness. love, perseverance, grace. And let's go to the last one here. The men of Jabesh Gilead who go and retrieve Saul's body after he has passed away. Enter dangerous lands to go retrieve it and provide a proper burial. What's described here? What is the essence of chesed in this story? Faithfulness. Oh, honor. Loyalty. Oh, sorry, what was that? Mercy. Okay, thank you. Well, this is getting really bad, the writing. It's a disaster. Okay. Respect. Okay, so we've got, just even in our short amount of time, we start looking at this idea of chesed and how people were showing chesed to others. And isn't this a really cool picture when we, again, think about this call in Genesis and this promise of God in Genesis 12 that you will be a blessing to the nations. This is, and also a cool side note, is in the lineage of Jesus, David is listed as part of Jesus' family. Rahab is listed in part of the lineage. Ruth is listed in part of the lineage. Very cool that we actually see, and the video talked about this, Jesus coming as God's ultimate portrayal of chesed, of loyal love. And we see this actually coming through the line of Jesus in different areas. Very cool. Okay, we are going to do the second story on the other side. And the second story is a story of how God has showed chesed to someone else. That is weird to see myself there. Okay, I'm going to stand here. So, oh boy. I actually asked 2 other teachers to come write for me, and both of them said, no, I'm scared of people judging my spelling. And so, pro tip is you slowly start to transition into handwriting, and then people don't know if it's an E or an A. So, pro tip. Okay, so let's take a look and do the same thing we just did with our group, looking at the stories of God showing chesed to Joseph, to the city of Nineveh, to Abraham, and to David. So I'll set another timer, and then we will talk about where we see God showing chesed. Okay, we'll do about 30 more seconds. All right, okay. So we've got 4 stories of God showing chesed to other people. Let's do kind of the same thing here. I better stop my timer. It's going to ring. There we go. Okay. When God showed chesed to Joseph, what did that mean? What did that look like? Compassion. Comfort. So this is actually an interesting story here because Joseph has just been accused of basically assaulting Potiphar's wife. He's shoved into prison, and this is a story of God showing Joseph chesed while in prison. So really interesting, right? Okay, and so he's using, so we see that God lays it upon the heart of the warden to show his chesed to Joseph. So, favor, protection. Okay, let's go to Nineveh. There's probably more, but just trying to keep it rolling. Okay, Nineveh. What do we see? God, and we've actually talked about Nineveh twice in the last month. But we've got God showing chesed to Nineveh. Jonah is not happy about this. But what does chesed look like in this story? What's the essence of it? Mercy, compassion, grace, forgiveness, patience. Okay, let's go to the next one. And I know there's more thoughts there. Abraham. So in this story here, Abraham is near the end of his life, and his son Isaac, the son that God is going to bless the nations through, doesn't have a wife yet. And his servant goes out to try to find a wife. And this story here is about the servant praying that God would show his chesed to his master Abraham and bring him a wife. So as we look at chesed here, what do we see as the essence of it? What does it mean in this story? Faithfulness. Fulfillment. Provision. Trust. Kindness. Okay. Again, probably more to describe that. And then this last one is from the Psalms. And when we go through the Psalms, in many of the Psalms, when you read the phrase, and his love endures forever, it's actually saying his chesed endures forever. And we've got a psalm here where David has just been delivered from death at the hands of Saul, and he's praising the Lord. So as we think about chesed in this story, what does it mean here? What comes to mind? Rescue from, okay. Rescue from oppression. I think I got that. Kindness. I think. Protection. And what's really interesting is we start to see the magnitude of this word chesed. And quite frankly, it's like as I was going through this and reading some of these stories, I'm like, oh, chesed is big. It's big. There's a lot being packed into this one particular word. Chesed is big. And not only is it big, it's active. It does something for someone. It makes an impact. Chesed looks like faithfulness, loyalty, sacrifice, respect, provision, forgiveness, compassion, grace. We see these stories in the Bible really amplifying what chesed is. And as I had mentioned, in Exodus 34, God describes himself as full of chesed. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in chesed and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love keeping chesed for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgressions and sin. God describes himself as this. And what's really cool is that as believers, as the church, we are called into knowing God's chesed, and we are called to inviting others into experiencing that, to show chesed to others. And that's what I want to end with, actually, is I had mentioned my deep hopes for today, which would that we would be able to identify this is what we're actually going to do next here. We've looked at it in the scriptures. Now let's look at it in our own lives. So what I want us to do, and we're going to actually carve out some time, very graciously Judy has offered to just play just a bit of music because we're going to pause. We're going to take time and pause. And I know for myself, it sometimes takes a couple minutes for me to kind of be like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to actually do something now. Yeah. And so we're going to create a bit of time for our brains to transition to, right, I'm going to be trying to live this out. And so I'd mentioned what I want us to do is answer these two questions. Where have I experienced God's chesed? So maybe this is an opportunity for praise. Where have I experienced these things? Or maybe like Joseph, we feel like we're in a bit of a prison right now. And maybe we are desperately seeking for God's chesed. We're seeking for God to reveal his abounding love to us in this moment. So that's going to be the first question I want us to individually pray about, think on. And then the second one is, who needs to experience God's chesed through me? I have an opportunity to show this love to others, and there's probably somebody in your life that God's laid on your heart, or if not, ask him to. You're like, who is it that needs that? Who is it that if they experience God's chesed right now, it would blow their mind and change their lives? Who is that person? So we're going to take some time to pray on these things, think on these things, jot a note to yourself, maybe make a calendar reminder in your phone to be like, oh, I got to talk to this person. Maybe you're thinking, you know what, Alpha's upcoming here. There's somebody that I know that really needs to know the love of Jesus. I want to invite them. Or maybe you're thinking, you know what, right now I need to feel God's love. Things are tough. Maybe I need to go. That could be something that's on your mind. So we'll give a couple minutes just for thinking this and praying through this, and then I'll pray and we'll invite the worship team to come up in a couple minutes here. God, we thank you that you are abounding in love, that you are faithful. Thank you that you are incredibly merciful. We thank you that you meet us in the good times, you meet us in our deepest of lows, and we thank you that you have established this body, this church, to be a way that you show love to the world. Pray that you'll be upon us this week as we go into it. Pray that you would place on our hearts and minds people who we know need to experience the depth of your chesed. Pray that you would awaken in us opportunity to praise for where we've seen your goodness, and that we would cry out when we feel like we need it more. In Jesus' name, amen.